Hello, there we are again. I'm Rein Wolfs, director of the Stedelijk, and 3 weeks ago I was here also with you. I was pointing out a few highlights for me, and today I'm doing an Easter egg tour, an Easter egg hunt, you can also say it. It's about not looking for eggs. We don't have many eggs in the collection. We have something probably, but it is not here, that's in the storage. But it's more about finding some surprises and finding a few kind of untold stories and kind of hidden stories. And we're doing around through base again, through the base 1, which is the collection up till about 1980, 1990. I would have liked to go also upstairs to the base 2, which is more contemporary, but it was not possible today also because of we're working also in, we're not as museum staff working, but we do some technical adjustments every now and then. Also, when you see it right here, this elevator cover, this will also probably be the color again. Probably the 1st of June, we'll keep it open, we're still closed until. So we dive into base of the permanent collection. The first thing we see is nothing hanging here. The Chagall was hanging here, fire doors here, and it was too dangerous to keep it up again. It will be placed again soon. It's not far away from here, but these are things we can try and do now every now and then. And then there's a second thing which you see when we walk through the exhibition, and that is also a sign of a museum in a lockdown situation. Of course, when we are not here, we try and have the light level almost 0 here. But since we are still doing some work every now and then, or we're doing those tours, we cover the light, the works which has some, which would get problems of getting exposed too much to the light. So it's about works on paper, it's about works with fabric inside, and those kind of light sensitive materials which we try and hide as much as possible. And when we open up, because it's an Easter egg hunt and we're looking for the hidden things, we're now looking all of a sudden to a Vincent van Gogh. And we're looking to a work on paper. First you think it's a painting of Van Gogh, but it's a work on paper, it's a gouache, and it's a view from where he was living. It's a view from Montmartre, from this quarter in Paris, this artistic quarter, and it became later also. And it's a view into the countryside and to the suburbs of Paris, which was not Saint-Quentin then, but it was another kind of growing suburbs. And you see how industrialization, how urbanization is starting to grow. It's the late 19th century. The work is from 1887, and you see the developments, and you see how also it's kind of a brightly painted gouache, and you see also the positive feeling a bit about it, and you see also, of course, the chimneys with the smoke, and they don't have in this period, in this painting also, they don't have like a negative quality as such. The negative quality of the smoke coming out of chimneys and the sensibility about pollution came much later, of course, and that still had to wait for another century almost to become on our radar, so to say. So we leave the Van Gogh. We have 5 Van Goghs in the collection in total. This is the start of the base here, and I just typical Van Gogh, and it's always nice to see how these colors come to you. I go 3 paintings further, and I go to a female painter. Boch is not a hugely well-known painter. It's a Belgian painter who was part of a group of painters called Les 20. The 20, and it's the 20 because they were like also already heading forward to the 20th century. It was a group of painters who of artists. It was in the late 1880s and the beginning of the 1890s. This painting is called Femme dans un paysage, Woman in a Landscape. It's a typical pointillist painting of Anna Boch. After this short period of painting in a kind of pointillic tradition, she became more expressively working. And Anna Boch was among those among those group of painters in which you had people like Ferdinand Knopf, James Ensor, and also, for instance, Félicien Rops, and also Jan Toorop. She was the only woman in this bunch of guys, in this bunch of artist guys. And Levin was a short history in the art history, but they had an important influence in a way, and they all went into different directions, and they all changed their painting styles quite soon. So the pointillist Anna Boch is one painting here in the collection, and some other small story, by the way, by Anna Boch. She also was a collector, and she bought a painting of Van Gogh from Theo van Gogh, from the brother of Vincent van Gogh. She bought that painting, and I don't know exactly how it went, but today this painting is in the Pushkin Museum in Moscow, and it's a nice way of how near things were in that period and with those people. The one was part of a certain group, the other one was part of a Parisian scene. She was more in the Brussels scene, and this is how things were going. I go back 2 steps probably, and Sven is following me. And by the way, when you have questions, you can write them, of course, like you always do. You're interactive, I know. I see it every Friday. And Femke will come up with some questions to me. Please don't ask me too difficult questions. We try and keep the tour going, as you might know. Just one short thing about this painting, The Violist from Chagall. Just to zoom in probably, because that's why when you're here with a camera, you have the possibility to zoom in. And when you zoom in and the trousers specifically, you see this kind of a caro pattern, and you see that something which the painting came from. You see that the painting is not painted on normal canvas or normal fabric, but it's painted. Much of this tablecloth it was used, which he used for painting because he didn't have much possibility. He didn't have financial possibilities to do as much as possible. You know this, and you look at the painting, and you see that how he used this pattern of the tablecloth specifically in this cloth, in this vest. Just to give you a short, maybe a short, small Easter story about Chagall. And from Chagall, I turn around and we go a bit further in time. We go a bit further in time, and we give you a short overview maybe of how base is organized. And there's one thing, you know, this architecture was made in here inside by Rem Koolhaas, and there's also this platform, and I want to take you shortly on this platform, because there are always people who also always forget about this platform when you are here visiting the Stedelijk as a real person. But the platform is specifically interesting right now, because of course you have the overview over the base installation, and probably you know it from photos also when you're looking from far away right now. But what's interesting now is also to see this lockdown situation and to see all those photos or those works on paper, or also like design objects like a fabric of a chair, that they are covered with this paper just to keep to get as less light as possible on them. Every hour we do in terms of light saving, in terms of lux saving for those works, is an hour we can use in the future, and it's an hour less, let's say, exposure to the dangers of what the normal world gives to pieces of art when you are caring about how to conserve them for eternity, or at least for a long, long time. We go down again, and I was planning to show you something again. We are walking around this sleeping room, this Harrenstein sleeping room, which was made by Rietveld and by Truus Schrader, but we walk around it and we come to the other side. But first of all, I show you a small photograph from the Second World period, the Second World War period. And it's a photograph by Emmy Andriessen. And I try and show you, and I hope that Sven can come not too near to me, but still give you, I can take it away completely. So we have somebody here who will be able to put it back again on the photo afterwards. I put it on the side. It's by Emmy Andriessen. And Emmy Andriessen was Jewish. She was hidden for the Nazis, but at some point of time, during being hidden in 1943, she got an ARIA statement by an anthropologist. So that meant that she was able to go on the streets again. She went on the streets again. She had a very small Rolleiflex camera, which she had put in her basket on her bicycle, and she was making hidden photos of daily life. And this is such a hidden photo of hidden daily life, so to say. You see the complete do-it-yourself aesthetics of Second World War, in where like a bicycle was put together out of different parts of different bicycles. And this kind of feeling it also looks a bit like the lockdown situation, like a very special situation. And we remember now the words of Angela Merkel when she was telling the German nation 1 or 2 weeks ago that never after Second World War we came into a situation like this again. We have a question, I see, and I'm curious.
Yes, someone's asking what the artwork was that was mirrored in the artwork. So that's the one where you're standing in front of right now.
I'm standing in the big one.
Yeah.
It's a Karl Appel. Always when I walk through base, we get questions about Karl Appel. People are very much looking forward to hear something about Karl Appel. The maestro of Cobra, of course, the king of Cobra maybe, and Appel is a very important artist for the Stedelijk. He was very much promoted by Willem Sandberg, who was the director of the Stedelijk after the war, and who was already a curator in the Stedelijk in the 30s. And he is, for instance, the guy who turned the Stedelijk into a white cube. That's something we want to point to when we want to do some interventions in the upcoming year, which deal a bit with the history of the Stedelijk, because he took away a lot of decorative elements, architectural elements, which are still in our depot in a big crate. And I want to show this big crate once again to make clear how a museum, which is an old museum, which is 125 years old and which grew up which started as a very almost like encyclopedia kind of museum, became a white cube museum for modern and contemporary art. And Appel, we are thinking about doing something with Appel next year, something not too big, but we want to do something special because Karl Appel would have turned 100 years old next year. And this is an icon of Cobra, of the free expression, of the way in which I'm very sure when we just talked about Anna Boch, and I said that she was turning into a more expressionist kind of style after she left the pointillist kind of style. Maybe at some point of time she also would have ended up like Karl Appel. But it's very good to go from this Karl Appel to another painting, which also is working with the idea of almost children-like, or in that sense, I use a word which is a difficult word, but in terms of primitive painting. But there is another question I hear.
Someone's asking what world Karl Appel was representing.
What world Karl Appel was representing? He was looking for a new kind of expression. He was looking for a new kind of artistic freedom. He was looking at the world of children paintings. He was looking at the world of art and of drawings and of paintings and the way other people were making. He was also looking, and that's why it's very good to go to this artist here, to Sikke Hultman, because Sikke Hultman, I picked him out for this tour also because of his profession, because Sikke Hultman used to be a confection baker. He was a confection baker all his life until with 60 years old he retired, and then he became a painter, and he was present in an exhibition at the Stedelijk Museum in 1941. It was called Primitive Painting, that exhibition, and Sikke Hultman had, I think, 16 paintings in that exhibition. And what we see here is Amsterdam. It's near the river Amstel, and you see behind there, you see the building which is now the Hermitage, the museum at the Amstel. And Sikke Hultman, he is a typical autodidact in that sense. He always was capable of working with art, but all of a sudden he finally had the chance to become a painter. He was born outside of Amsterdam, but he lived 30 years of Amsterdam, and he was not living in good circumstances. He was living in the so-called Armenhuis and the Routerstraat, which is the home for poor people at the Routerstraat near the zoo, so to say. And this painting is a primitivist painting, primitive painting. And when you compare that to the Karl Appel one, it's a completely different kind of primitivism, because with Appel it's a way of trying to get into the way somebody, it's trying to adopt a way of painting to get a new kind of freedom. And with Sikke Hultman, it's the way he's painting. And this is a interesting kind of juxtaposition, I would say. There's a question again. Someone's asking if this is naive art. This is what we call naive art. When I say primitive, I said it because it was used, that's the title for that exhibition at the Stedelijk, but today we would call it naive art. And then you see that the central perspective is not done like somebody who studied this would have done it, and the whole way of working with two-dimensionality and suggestion is completely different. And in a way, this is very important for the way modern art was born, because it made clear that we have to do, where we are painting, we have to deal with a two-dimensional surface. And when we start and come up with perspective and those kind of things, that's all kind of tricks we're using to get away from the idea that a painting is a two-dimensional surface. And he comes quite near to this two-dimensionality in a way, and it's a very specific painting, and we thought, or not I thought, because I was not here yet, but it's a painting which is important that we also show it here in the collection. Now, I wanted to show you very shortly this Harrenstein sleeping room, which was a couple, the Harrensteins. He was a children's doctor, and when we look at this sleeping room, which was designed by Gerrit Rietveld and by Truus Schröder-Schrader, his maîtresse, so to say, we see an interesting juxtaposition again, because in this the style kind of sleeping room, we see a painting at the end, and this painting is by Charlie Thorup. When you're not Dutch, you probably don't know Charlie Thorup, but she was the most important person probably of the so-called new pragmatism in Holland, the nieuwe zakelijkheid in a way. And what you see there is a painting of a fair, and the painting is so much completely different than the whole interior, because it's a funny kind of fair, and you see, we don't see it that much, but I think Sven is able to do a bit of zooming. We see right on the right down corner, we see a self-portrait of Charlie Thorup, of the painter, of the female painter again, like Anna Boch before. And when you see on the left down corner, the left corner on the bottom, which is very dark, you see a car, and in this car, the couple Harrenstein is sitting. They are driving the car, so they are the founders of this room, so to say, like in an old-fashioned kind of painting. They are the founders, and as founders they are present, and also the artist is present. Also a bit of a wonderful hidden painting in something else. And we know that it was hanging in the sleeping room because we have photos of it in which we see it. Now, before we are getting too long, I want to point out something over here. I wanted to tell you something about Ernst Ludwig Kirchner, about the Brücke artist, about the expressionist artist. And next year we're going to do a show on Kirchner and Nolde. And I wanted to point to two things. I wanted to point to something which is not the main subject on this painting. This is Frenzy, the model, the child model, which was which was in a lot of paintings of Kirchner, and with whom he had a dubious relationship, we have to say also. I have to point to this. This is very important. We need to be critical aware of this. But when we go to the right side of the painting, we see this this stool. We see this leopard stool, this Leopardenkruk, the leopard stool, and it's coming from Cameroon. And Cameroon was a colony of Germany. Germany is not famous for being a colony, or doesn't have a reputation of being one of the biggest colonialist countries, but Germany was very late in becoming a colonialist country. And Cameroon, the former West Africa, was a colony of Germany for about 50 years, and it became independent of Germany again in 1919. So this painting is from 1910, and this stool, this Cameroon leopard stool, was came to Kirchner by the brother of Haeckel, who was also one of the Brücke painters, also one of the German expressionist painters. And this stool will also be part of our exhibition of Kirchner, because this was part of the furniture in his studio. And Kirchner took a lot of ideas from these kind of different subjects from the countries, and we will also see a lot in that exhibition, comment a lot on the notion of the art being taken also from examples of colonialism. And also when you see the Tanzende, this dancing figure also of Kirchner, it also goes back to Cameroon kind of sculptures, and they were present in the Museum for Völkerkunde, in the Ethnological Museum in Dresden, where Kirchner was living and working in this period. And we see a lot of works which directly go back to things he saw in the Ethnological Museum in Dresden, and which all have to do with colonialism. And we will show examples of those ethnological objects also in the exhibition next year, together with Nolde. There's a question again.
Someone's asking if Kirchner was after the Brücke period.
Kirchner was die Brücke. Yeah, I mentioned die Brücke before. He was together with Haeckel and Schmidt-Rottluff and Müller, I think. They were the Brücke guys. It was this group of painters, this group of expressionist painters who came together in Dresden. The Brücke was the Dresden bunch of painters. So where am I again? I just showed you a confection baker, but we have another confection baker who also probably was making some nice pastries and things or some eggs for Easter. And in this case, I speak about Hilde Crop. Hilde Crop, who is a famous example of the Amsterdam School, which I also see a lot because I don't live far away from the Spaardammer buurt, for instance, and there you see a lot of architecture, which is Amsterdam School, and in those days you do a lot of walking, where you're allowed to by the government. And Hilde Crop also started his education as a confection baker. His father was also a baker, and but he turned into being a sculptor when he was in England, working as a confection baker as part of his studies, or just after his studies. And some people told him, you should become an artist, and he became an artist. And of course, the idea of being a confection baker on the one hand, and decorating nice cakes, etc., and becoming a sculptor is not far away, probably. And we know Hilde Crop mostly because of a lot of sculpture he made on bridges, and he made on architecture in Amsterdam, and also, for instance, for the big Berlage monument at the Victoriaplein in Amsterdam, which is all part of this Amsterdam school kind of setting. And just to show you again, because I showed some photos and things and works on paper, but also this kind of work, these kind of parts from our design collection, applied art collection, also need to be covered now, because when we talk about fabric, about textile, this is one of the most light one of the most light sensitive materials in the art world. So we go on again, and but not too long anymore, I guess. There is a question.
Someone's asking if you could say the name of the first confection baker again.
Sikke Hultman. It's a Frisian kind of name, I would say. Sikke Hultman. I wanted to do 2 or 3 more before we come to an end, and I wanted to jump with you to Joe Bear. And because last time I showed you a painting of Robert Ryman, a white on white painting, and Joe Bear is also a minimal artist, and Joe Bear is one of the only female minimal artists, and Joe Bear is 90 years old already, and Joe Bear is living in Amsterdam since 20 years. She was part of the New York minimal art scene in the 60s, and this painting is from 69, I think. No, it's from 63, sorry, it's from 63. And the painting is called Korean Painting. And it's called Korean Painting because there was an art dealer once telling about her painting. This is so incomprehensible for people that it looks like Korean art. Which is today we would have to say this is not politically right kind of thing to say, probably kind of statement to say. Joe Bear as an icon of, I would say, of minimal painting. She had a small show in 2013 here, which was organized by Anne Goldstein when she was director at the Stedelijk. And it's very nice when you come nearer that it becomes much more painterly than when you have the first impression. It's minimal painting, but it's painting, and you see how the painting is being brought on the canvas, and you see this this kind of perspective which also comes inside. And there is also still some illusionism, because we have the idea also of the illusion of a frame in which the white canvas is being shown. Joe Bear as one of the examples of, I mean, still a lot of very important also international artists and icons who are living in Amsterdam some way or another. Coming from the New York art scene, then she was living for a while on the countryside in Ireland, and then the last 20 years now she's living in Amsterdam, not far away from here. I think there was a question, or am I sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. They want me to stop or what?
No, definitely not. Someone's asking, which work would you choose to express the current situation we are living in right now?
This is a good question, and I have an answer to this. I have 2 small answers to this. And I have one answer, and that is in this showcase. And that's a showcase, and this is has more to do with the artist book collection which we have at the Stedelijk. We have a big artist books collection, and we see this magazine kind of thing here being done by a lot of different artists, by William Copley and by Bill Copley and by others, and it's very interesting. I'll just show it because it's just a small bridge, and a conservator of us gave me this idea, and I like it very much because you see it's called SMS. When you go a bit to the left, Sven, you see this SMS, this edition, and SMS is the abbreviation for some more shit, and that's my answer to this question. We are in a some more shit kind of situation, and we all looking forward to try and get out of this some more shit kind of situation. So this is a way of of also finding probably another way of getting along with this shit kind of situation. It's a joke, of course, but it's also it's something which we have to face right now. Now, when we come to this corner, we tend to get problems with the Wi-Fi. Do we, Sven? Or
Not yet.
huh?
Not yet.
Not yet. So we go very shortly. We go into this room, and I asked Femke to, and I do it myself already, because otherwise we don't get out anymore. Because I just want to get to one thing which is very close aligned to tech. Paul Tech died in the 80s as one of the early artists who died from AIDS. And Paul Tech had a famous exhibition in 1969 in the Stedelijk here. And the exhibition was opened on Easter Day in 1969. And in the exhibition, which was a huge, it was a big installative kind of exhibition, in this exhibition there were living chickens. Also laying eggs, of course. There were living chickens in that exhibition. And after this exhibition, Paul Tech gave a couple of objects from that exhibition as a gift to the Stedelijk. And those were those two kind of bath kind of baskets. And in the one basket there's a fish. There's a, what's the name again? It's a snoek of Dutch. It's a pike. It's called a pike in English. And of course, we are in Good Friday today. The whole world is not working. Holland is about the only country where people just work on Good Friday, although it's the most holy day in most, specifically in most Catholic countries. Germany, Switzerland, Italy, nobody thinks about working, but we're working, and we're working together with all of you. And this kind of fish on Good Friday, and referring to a show which was filled with eggs during the show, because the chickens were laying eggs, and it was opened on Easter Day. I think this is the perfect Easter egg hunt victim at the end of this tour. If there are any more questions, you can always still send them later to us, and we will be back to you also next week again. Next Friday, 2 o'clock, we keep a horizontal way of programming, as we call it in Holland. Every Friday, 2 o'clock, we're trying to be back with a tour like this. And the idea for the next week could be about more dive into the design collection of the Stedelijk. Thank you very much for watching. Keep safe. Pay attention to each other. And we'll meet again soon, and also on a live kind of way. Thank you very much. We see each other.